Good evening, and welcome to Fairhope High School's Black Box Theater. Please silence all cell phones, refrain from talking, no smoking out in the lobby, in or outside the building, and no flash photography, if you don't mind. Tonight we are proud to present the 75th anniversary of Thornton Wilder's Our Town, and so without further ado, I am proud to announce Fairhope High School.
Hello, everybody. Hello. Hello. Thank you very much. The name of the play is called Our Town. It is written by Thornton Wilder, produced and directed by Fairhope High School Theater Department. And it you'll see Mr. Brady Grimm, Mr. Noah Deering, Mr. Ty Reed, Mrs. Emma Bird, Mrs. Hannah Bell, Mrs. Darby Dempsey, and many others. The name of the town is Grover's Corners, New Hampshire, just across the Massachusetts line. Latitude 42 degrees 40 minutes. Longitude 70 degrees 37 minutes. The day is May 7th, 1901. The time is just before dawn. The sun is starting to show some streaks of light over there behind our mountain. On the morning star, it gets awful bright the moment before it has to go down. Well, I better show you how our town lies. Here is Main Street. Over there is the railway station. Tracks go that way. Across the tracks is Polish Town and some foreign families. Over here we have the Congregational Church. Across the street's the Presbyterian. Over here is the Methodist and Unitarian. Baptist is down in the hollow by the river, and Catholic Church is over beyond the tracks. Over here we have the Town Hall and Post Office combined. Jail's in the basement. Here we have a row of stores, horse blocks and hitching posts in front of them. First automobile is going to come around in about 5 years. Belonged to Baker Cartwright, or just citizen. That was in the big white house up on the hill. And here we have Mr. Morgan's drugstore and the grocery store. Just about everybody in town manages to go into those two stores at least once a day. Public school's still farther over. Here we have our doctor's house, Doc Gibbs. And this is Mrs. Gibbs' garden. Bunch of corn, peas, beans, hollyhock, heliotrope, and a lot of burdock. The local paper used to come out twice a week back in the day. The Grover's Corner Sentinel, that's what it's called. And here's Editor Webb's house. And Mrs. Webb's garden, just like Mrs. Gibbs, except it's got a lot of sunflowers too. And here, in the center of town, is a big butternut tree. That's a little town, you know what I mean. No one very remarkable ever come out of it, as far as we know. Earliest tombstones up in the cemetery say 1670 to 1680. A whole bunch of Grovers, Cartwrights, Gibbses, and Hursteys. Same names as are around here today. Well, as I said, it's about dawn. The only lights on town are over in Polish Town, where a mother's just had twins. And in the Joe Crowell house, where Joe Jr. is getting ready to flag a 545 for Boston. There she is. Here comes Doc Gibbs, coming back from that baby case. And here comes Mrs. Gibbs. Doc Gibbs died in 1930. Mrs. Gibbs here died much later, or, well, earlier in fact. She went out to visit her daughter in Canton, Ohio, who married that businessman. She died there. Pneumonia. We brought her body back here, though, and she's up in the cemetery now. And a whole mess of Gibbses and Hurseys. She was Juliet Hersey before she married Doc Gibbs in the Congregational Church over there. Well, here comes Doc Gibbs now. And here comes Mrs. Webb, coming down to make breakfast as well. And here comes Joe Crowell, delivering the morning paper.
Morning, Doc.
Well, good morning, Joe.
You want your paper now?
Why not? I'll take it.
Anybody been sick, Doc?
No, just a pair of twins over in Polish Town. Joe, I hear your teacher, Miss Foster's gonna get married.
Yes, sir. It's a fellow over in Concord.
Well, I do declare. How do you boys feel about that?
Well, and of course ain't none of my business, but I think that if a person starts out as a teacher, she ought to stay one.
How's your knee, Joe?
Fine, Doc. I don't think about it at all. Only, like you said, it always tells me when it's gonna rain.
What's it telling you today? Gonna rain?
No, sir.
You ever make a mistake?
No, sir.
I want to tell you something about that Joe Crowell there. Awful bright. Graduated head of his class. Got a scholarship to Massachusetts Tech. Graduated head of his class there too. It was all read up in the Boston papers at the time. Gonna be a great engineer he was. Well, that was until the war. He died in France. All that education for nothing. Here comes Howie Newsom delivering the milk.
Come on, Bessie. What's the matter with you? Morning, Doc.
Morning, Howie.
Somebody sick?
No, just a pair of twins to Miss Gorslovsky.
Twins, eh? This town's getting bigger every year.
You think it's gonna rain today, Howie?
Oh, no, fine day. It'll burn through. Whoa, Bessie.
Well, hello there, Bessie. How old is she now, Howie?
Bessie's going on 17. She's all mixed up about the route ever since the Lockharts stopped taking their quart of milk every day. Keeps wanting to leave one just the same. Keeps scolding me the whole trip. Morning, Miss Gibbs.
Good morning, Howie.
Doc's coming just down the street.
Is he? Seems like you're late today.
Something wrong with the separator. Don't know what it was. Doc?
Howie?
Come on, Bessie.
Good morning.
Oh, good morning, Frank. Everything all right?
Yes, I do declare. Easy as kids.
Bacon will be ready in a minute. Sit down and drink your coffee. You can catch a couple of hours of sleep tonight, can't you, Frank?
I don't think so. Mrs. Wentworth's coming in at 11. Yes, I know what it's about, too. Her stomach ain't what it ought to be.
All told, won't come on 3 hours of sleep. I declare, Frank, you've got to go somewhere and get a real rest and change. Children, Wally, Emily, time to get up. George, Rebecca.
George, look sharp.
Yes, Pa?
Wally, Frank, school. You've got to speak to George. Seems like something's come over him lately. I can't get him to help me around the house. Won't even chop some wood for me.
Is he sassy to you?
No, he just whines. All I can think about is that baseball.
My boy. Well, I'm gonna go upstairs and get changed.
Wally, you wash yourself good or I'll come and do it myself. Mama, what dress shall I wear? I washed it now in the blue gingham for you special. Oh, Ma, I hate that dress. Oh, hush up with you. Every day I go to school dressed like a sick turkey. Why, Rebecca, you always look very nice. Mama, George is throwing soap at me. I'll go up there and slap the both of you. That's what I'll do.
We got a factory in our town too. You hear it? Makes blankets. The Cartwrights own it and it brung them a fortune.
Now, children, I won't have it. Breakfast is as good as any other meal of the day, and I won't have you gobbling it down like wolves. Wally, put your book down.
But Ma, I got it all about Canada by 10 o'clock.
You know the rules as well as I do. No books at table. And as for me, I'd rather have my children healthy than bright. I'm both, Mama. You know I am. I'm the brightest girl in school for my age. I have a wonderful memory. Eat your breakfast. I'll speak to your father about it when he's rested. Seems to me like a boy your age should get 25 cents a week. Although I declare I don't know what you'll spend it on.
Oh, Ma, I got a lot of things to buy.
Strawberry phosphates. That's what you'll buy.
I don't see how Rebecca comes to have so much money. She has more than $1.
I've been saving it up gradually. Well, dear, I think it's a good idea to spend some every now and then. Mama, do you know what I love most in the world? Do you? Money. Eat your breakfast. There's the first bell. I gotta go. Now, children, walk fast. But you know how to run. Wally, put your pants back on. Rebecca, remember to tell your teacher congratulations for me. Can you do that, yes?
Hey, Emily.
Yes, Mom. Rebecca, you look very nice. Pick up your feet. I love your dress. Here, chick, 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 chick. Here, chick, chick. Oh, what's the matter with you? Fight, fight, fight. That's all you ever do. Here, chick, chick, chick. Oh, you don't belong to me. Where'd you come from? Oh, good morning, Myrtle. How's your cold?
Good morning. I still get that tickling feeling in the back of my throat. Told Charles I didn't know if I'd go to choir practice tonight.
Have you tried singing over your voice?
I have, but I can't seem to stay on pitch. While I was resting myself, I decided I'd drink some of these beans.
Well, let me help you. Beans have been good this year.
I told myself I'd put up 40 quarts if it kills me. Children say they hate them, but I notice I get them down all winter.
Myrtle, I've got to tell you something, or I'll just burst.
Why, Julia Gibbs?
Myrtle, did one of those second-hand shopmen from Boston come out to see you last Friday?
No.
Well, he called on me. First, I thought he was a patient, wanted to see Dr. Gibbs. And he worms away into my parlor. And Myrtle Webb, he offered me $350 for old Grandma Whitworth's highboy as I'm sitting here.
Why, Julia Gibbs?
That old thing Why, it was so big, I didn't know what to do with it. And I almost gave it to Cousin Hester Wilcox.
Well, you're gonna take it, aren't you?
Oh, I don't know.
You don't know? $350? Why, what's come over you?
Well, if I could get the doctor to take the money, go away someplace nice on a trip, I'd sell it like that. You know, Myrtle, it's been the dream of my life to go see Paris, France. Oh, I don't know, sounds crazy, I suppose. But for years I've been promising myself that if we just got the chance...
Well, what does the doctor think about it?
Oh, well, I did beat around the bush a little bit. Said if I got a legacy, that's the way I put it, I'd make him take me.
And what did he say?
Well, you know how he is. I haven't heard a serious word out of him since we was married. No, he said, my making him discontented around Grover's Corners to go traipsing about Europe. Better let well enough alone. Every 2 years we take a trip to the battlefields of the Civil War. And that's enough treat for anybody, he says.
Well, Mr. Webb just admires the way that Doc Gibbs knows everything about the Civil War. He has the right mind to move from Napoleon over to the Civil War.
It's true. Sorry.
Only Doc Gibbs being the best in the country makes him despair.
It's true. The doctor's never so happy as when he's at Antietam or Gettysburg. The times, Myrtle, I've been walking over those hills, looking at every leaf and bush, like we was gonna buy it.
Well, if that second-hand man is really serious about buying it, then you sell it, Julia, and you'll get to see Paris, France if you really want to. Just keep dropping hints, here and there. That's how I got to see the Atlantic Ocean, you know.
Oh, I'm sorry I brought it up. It seems to me that once in your life, before you die, you ought to go see some country where they don't talk in English and don't even want to.
Thank you, ladies. Now we're going to skip a few hours. You see, I want to explore a little bit more about this town. A kind of scientific account, you might say. So I've asked Professor Willard of our state university to come and sketch a few details out of our past history here. Professor? Oh, may I introduce Professor Willard of our state university? Just a few brief notes, Professor. Unfortunately, our time is limited.
Grover's Corners, let me see. Grover's Corners lies on the old Paleocene granite of the Appalachian Range. I may say it's some of the oldest land in the world. We're very proud of that here. Was there some more recent outcroppings? Sandstone showing through a shelf of Devonian basalt, and some vestiges of Mesozoic shale. But those are comparatively new, perhaps 200 or 300 million years. Some highly interesting fossils have been found, I may say, unique fossils, 2 miles north of the Peckham farm in Silas Peckham's cow pasture. These may be seen in the museum at the university at any time. That isn't a reasonable time. Might I read some Professor Gruber's notes on the meteorological situation, mean precipitation, etc.?
Afraid we won't have time for that, Professor. How about a few brief notes on the history of man here?
Oh, anthropological data. Early Amerindian stock, Cotahatchee tribes, no evidence before the 10th century of this era, now entirely disappeared. Oh, possible traces in 3 families. Migration in early part of the 17th century.
And the population, Professor Willard.
Within the town limits, 2,640.
One moment. Professor, we just had twins.
Oh, that makes a difference. The population at the moment is 2,642. The postal district brings in 507 more, making a total of 3,149. Mortality birth rates are constant by McPherson's gauge. 6.032. Population of 7.
Thank you, Professor. We're all very much obliged, I'm sure.
Not at all, sir. Not at all.
And now for the political and social report from Editor Webb.
Oh, he'll be here in just a minute. He just cut his hand while eating an apple.
Thank you, Mrs. Webb.
Charles! Everybody's waiting!
Mr. Webb is editor and publisher of the Grover's Corner Sentinel. That's our local paper, don't you know?
Oh, well, I don't have to tell you that we're run here by a board of selectmen. All males voted at the age of 21. Women vote indirectly. We're lower middle class, sprinkling of professional workers, 10% illiterate laborers. Politically, we're 86% Republican, 6% Democrat, rest indifferent. Religiously, we're 85% Protestant, 14% Catholic, rest indifferent.
Have you any comments, Mr. Webb?
Very ordinary town, if you ask me. Little better behaved than most, probably a lot duller though. but our young people seem to like it well enough. 90% of them graduating from high school move right down here to live, even after they've been away to college.
Now, is there anybody in the audience that would like to ask Mr. Webb a question? Yes, you in the back.
Is there much drinking in Grover's Corners?
Well, ma'am, I wouldn't know exactly what you'd call much. Saturday nights, the farmhands meet over at Ellery Reno's stable and holler some. We have one or two town drunks. But they're always having remorses every time an evangelist comes to town. No, ma'am, I'd say liquor ain't a regular thing in the home, except for in the medicine chest. Right good for a snake bite, you know. Always was.
Is there no one?
Excuse me. Come down to the front, will you? Where we can all hear you.
Is there no one in town aware of social injustice and industrial inequality?
Oh, yes, everybody is. But it's something terrible. Seems like everybody spends their time talking about who's rich and who's poor.
Then why don't they do something about it?
Well, I don't know. I guess we're all hunting for a way like everybody else, that the diligent and sensible rise to the top, and the lazy and quarrelsome eventually sink to the bottom. But in the meantime, we do all we can to help those who can't help themselves, and those who can, we leave alone.
Is there much culture or love and beauty in Grover's Corner?
Well, there ain't much. Not in the sense of your means, anyway. Come to think of it, we have a few girls that play piano at high school commencement, but they ain't happy about it. But maybe now's the place to tell you that we have a lot of simple pleasures of a kind. They're like watching the sun come over the mountains in the morning, and we all notice a good deal about the birds and the change of the seasons. But that other stuff, you're right, ma'am, there ain't much. Robinson Crusoe and the Bible, and Handel's Argo, we all know that one, and the Whistler's Mother. That's just about as far as we go.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Now we're going to go back to the town. There's an early afternoon calm a-buzzing in, a-humming from the schoolyards. There's a few buggies on Main Street. Horses are dozing at the hitching blocks. You all remember what it's like. Doc Gibbs is in his office, tapping people and making them say, ah. And Mr. Webb is over there cutting his lawn. 1 man in 10 thinks it's a privilege to push his own lawnmower. Oh, the kids are coming from school already.
I can't, Lois. I gotta go home and help my mom. I'm sorry.
Emily, walk simply. Who do you think you are today?
Oh, Papa, you're just terrible. 1 minute you're saying, sit up straight, and the next, you're calling me names. I just don't listen to you.
Golly, I never got a kiss from such a great lady before. Excuse me, Mrs. Forrest.
What you doing playing baseball on Main Street, young man?
Awfully sorry, Mrs.
Why don't you
Forrest.
go out and play in the field? Ain't nobody got time for that.
Oh, hello, Emily.
Hello, George.
You made a fine speech in class today.
Well, thank you. I was really ready to talk about the Monroe Doctrine, but last minute Miss Corcoran said, talk about the Louisiana Purchase. But I worked an awful long time on both of them.
Gee, it's funny, Emily. From my window up there, I can just see your head nights when you're working on homework over in your room.
Why, can you?
I don't see how you sit still so long. You must like school.
I figure it's just something you gotta go through, George.
Yeah. Say, Emily, what do you say we make out a kind of telegraph? From your window to mine, and you can give me a hint or two on one of those algebra problems. I don't mean the answers, Emily. Of course not. Just a hint.
Well, I think hints all right. Yeah. George, if you get stuck, you just whistle to me, and I'll give you a hint.
Emily, you're just naturally bright, I guess.
Oh, I figure it's just the way a person's born, George.
Yeah, but you see, I want to be a farmer, and my Uncle Luke says that whenever I'm old enough, I can come and work on the farm, and if I'm any good, I can just gradually have it.
You mean the house and everything?
Yeah. But I better be getting to baseball.
Yeah.
It was nice talking to you, Emily.
Nice talking to you, George.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Webb.
Well, good afternoon, George.
Emily, come and help me shrink these beans for the winter.
So long, Emily.
So long, George. So, George Gibson himself have a real conversation, did he? He must be growing up. How old would he be now? Oh, I don't know. Let's see, he'd be about 16.
Mom, I made a speech in class today, and it was very nice.
Really? You must recite it for your father at supper. What was it about?
The Louisiana Purchase. It was like silk off a spool. I'm gonna make speeches all my life, Mama. Mama, can I ask you a question? Serious?
Seriously, dear, not serious.
Well then seriously, can I?
Of course.
Do you think I'm good looking?
Well, yes, of course you are. Both my children got good features. I'd be ashamed if they hadn't.
Well, that's not what I mean. Do you think I'm pretty?
I've already told you yes. Now enough of that. Never heard of such foolishness.
Oh, Mommy, you never told us the truth about anything.
I am telling you the truth.
Were you pretty?
Why, yes, I was. I was the prettiest girl in town next to Mamie Cartwright.
Well, Mommy, you gotta say something good about me. Do you think I'm pretty enough to get people interested in me?
Emily, you make me tired. I've never heard anything as foolish as this. You're pretty enough for all normal purposes. Now come along and bring that bull with you.
Oh, Mommy, you're no help at all.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Mrs. Webb. I think this is a good time to tell you that the Cartwright interests have begun building a new bank in Grover's Corners. Got the marble from Vermont, sorry to say, but they've asked a friend of mine what they should put in the cornerstone, for people 1,000 years from now to see. We're putting in a copy of the New York Times and the Grover's Corners Sentinel. We're awfully interested in this because the scientist fellows have come up with a glue, a silicate glue, to make the writings keep for 1,000 years or two. We're also putting in a copy of the Bible and Constitution of the United States and some of William Shakespeare's plays. What do you say, folks? Sound good? Babylon once had 2 million people in it, and all we really know about them is the names of the kings or the copies of the wheat contracts, and of course the sales of slaves. Yet every night the families would come to dinner, and the father would come home from work and smoke would rise from the chimney. Same as here. Even in ancient Greece and Rome, all we really know about them is what we can piece together from the joking poems and the comedies they did in the theater back then. So I'm going to put a copy of this play in the cornerstone for the people 1,000 years from now to see what our life was like. More important than the Lindenberg flight or the Treaty of Versailles. You see what I mean? So people 1,000 years from now, this is the way we were in the provinces north of New York at the beginning of the 20th century. This is the way we were. And our growing up, and our marrying, and then our living, and then our dying. Well, a good deal of time's gone by. Choir practice is going on over at the Congregational Church. The children are at home doing their schoolwork. The day is running down like a tired clock.
Blessed be. Stop. All right, now let's do it again. And remember, ladies, music came into the world to give pleasure. Now let's try it again.
Blessed be the
Now look here, everyone. Get it out of your head that music's only good when it's loud. You leave the loudness to the Methodists. You couldn't beat the music if you wanted to. Now again, tenors. Psst. Emily.
Hello, George.
Hello.
Why isn't the moonlight just so terrible? I can hardly work.
Yeah. Say, Emily, did you get the third problem?
Which?
The third.
Why, yes, George. That's the easiest of them all.
I don't see it. Do you think you could give me a hint?
Okay, I'll give you one hint. The answer is in yards.
In yards? How do you mean?
In square yards.
In square yards?
Yes, George, don't you see? In square yards of wallpaper. 24.
Oh, I see. In square yards of wallpaper. Thanks, Emily.
You're welcome. Isn't the moonlight so terrible, George? And choir practice going on. I bet if you hold your breath, you could hear the train all the way from Kentucky. You hear it?
What do you know?
Well, I better try to get back to work, George. Good night.
You see, that's better. But it ain't no miracle. Before I forget, how many of you will be able to come in Tuesday afternoon and sing at Fred Hershey's wedding? Show your hands. Yes, that'll be fine. That'll be right nice. Once again now, art thou weary? Art thou languid? It's a question, ladies and gentlemen. Make it talk.
George, can you come down here a second?
Yes, Pa.
And remember Sunday, take the second verse real soft and sort of die out at the end. Ready?
Make yourself comfortable, son. I'll only keep you a second. George, how old are you?
Me? I'm 16, almost 17.
And what do you want to do after school's over?
Well, you know, Pa, I want to work on the farm with Uncle Luke.
And you'll be willing, will you, to get up early and hoe and hay all day and milk and feed the stock?
Of course I will. What do you mean?
Well, George, while I was in my office today, I heard a funny sound. And you know what it was? It was your mother chopping wood. There you see, your mother, getting up early, cooking meals all day long, washing and ironing, and yet she still has to go out back and chop wood. I suppose she just got tired of asking you. You just gave up and figured it'd be easier to do it herself. And you, son, you eat her meals, and then you wear the clothes that she keeps nice for you, and then you run off and play baseball like she's some hired girl that we keep around the house but don't like very much. Well, son, I knew all I had to do was call your attention to it. Here's a handkerchief. Well, George, I've decided to raise your spending money 25 cents a week. Not, of course, for chopping wood for your mother, because that's a sort of gift that you give her, but because you're getting older, I'd imagine there are things you'd like to spend that money on.
Thanks, Pa.
Let's see. Tomorrow's payday. You can count on it then. Well, I suppose Rebecca will probably want some too. Oh well. I wonder what could be taking your mother so long.
It's only 8:30, Pa.
Choir practice never was as late as this before. I don't know why she's in that old choir anyway. She hasn't got any more voice than an old crow. And traipsing around with those women at all hours of the night, people are going to start talking, you know. Well, just about time you retired, don't you think, son?
Yes, Pa.
Oh, good night, Martha. Good night, Mr. Foster.
I'll tell Mr. Webb. I know he wants to put in the paper.
My, it's late. Oh, good night, Irma. Myrtle Webb, would you look at that moon? Potato weather for sure. Well, naturally, I didn't want to say anything in front of all those others, but really, it's the worst scandal that ever was in this town. What? Well, Simon Simpson. Now, Luella. But, Julia, to have the organist of a church drinking and drunk year after year. Luella. Julia, you know he was drunk tonight. Now, Luella, look. We all know about Mr. Simpson. And we all know the trouble he's been through. And Dr. Ferguson knows too. And if Dr. Ferguson can keep him there on his job, then the only thing the rest of us can do is just try not to notice. Not to notice it, but it's getting worse.
No, it isn't, Luella. It's getting better. I've been in the choir twice as long as you have, and it doesn't happen near as often. My, look at that moon. It'll be hard to go to bed on a night like this. Well, children will be up to all hours. Good night, Luella. Julia.
Good night. Can you get home safe, Luella? Oh, it's as bright as day outside. In fact, I can see Mr. Soames scowling out the window now. Really, you'd think we've been to a dance knowing a men folk carry on. Good night, Julia.
Good night.
See you on Sunday.
See you then. Well, we had a real nice time.
You're also kind of late.
Oh, Frank, it ain't later than usual.
And running around with those women gossiping in the streets.
Oh, Frank, don't be grouchy. Come out in the moonlight. Smell my heliotrope.
Come on. Huh?
My, isn't that lovely? What did you do the whole time I was away anyway?
Well, I read, as usual. What were the girls gossiping about tonight?
Well, believe me, Frank, there's something to gossip about.
Simon Stimson at it again, eh?
Worst I've ever seen him. How will that end, Frank? Dr. Ferguson can't keep forgiving him forever.
Well, I guess I do know more about Simon Stimson's affairs than anyone else in this town, but I don't really know how that'll end. All we can do is sit back and watch. Some people ain't made for small town life. Come on, get in the house.
No, not yet, Frank. I'm worried about you.
What are you worried about?
I think it's my duty to make plans for us to get a real rest and change, and well, if that's my legacy, I'm going to insist on it.
No, Julia, don't start that again. Come on, get in the house.
Frank, you're just unreasonable.
Before you know it, you'll catch a cold. I gave George a piece of my mind tonight. I reckon you'll have your wood shop for a while now anyway. I took care of that situation. Come on, get in the house.
Oh, dear. There's always so many things to pick up, seems like. You know, Frank, Mrs. Fairchild started locking their front doors at night. Seems like most people at that part of town do.
They're all getting citified. That's the problem with them. And the funny thing is, they haven't got anything fit to burgle, and everyone knows it.
Oh, get out, Rebecca. There's only room for one at this window.
Well, George, just let me look a minute, okay?
Use your own window.
I tried, but there's no moon there. That's it. George, do you know what I think? Do you? I think maybe the moon's getting near and near and there'll be a big explosion.
Rebecca, you don't know anything. If the moon was getting near and there's going to be a big explosion, the scientists that sit up with telescopes all night would tell us about it and it would be all over the newspapers.
Oh. George, is the moon shining on South America, Canada, and half the whole world?
Well, probably is.
9:30. Most of the lights are out in town. Well, there's Constable Warren trying out a few doors on Main Street. And here comes Editor Webb after putting his newspaper to bed.
Evening, Bill.
Evening, Mr. Webb.
By the moon.
Yeah.
All quiet tonight?
Simon Stimson's been rolling around a bit. Just saw his wife moving out to hunt for him, so I decided to look the other way. There he is now.
Good evening, Simon. Town seems to have settled down for the night pretty well. Good evening. Yes, the town settled down for the night pretty well, Simon. I guess we better do the same. Can I walk a ways with you? Good night.
I don't know how that's going to turn out, Mr. Webb.
Well, he's seen a peck of trouble, one thing after another. Oh, Bill, if you see my boy smoking cigarettes, give him a word, will you? Thanks a lot of you, Bill.
I don't think he smokes no cigarettes, Mr. Webb. At least not 2 or 3 a year.
I hope not. Good night, Bill.
Good night, Mr. Webb.
Myrtle, is that you up there?
Oh, no, it's just me, Papa.
Why aren't you in bed?
I don't know. The moonlight is so beautiful. And the smell of Miss Gibbs's heliotrope. Can you smell it?
Having any troubles on your mind, have you, Emily?
Troubles, Papa? No.
Well, don't let your mother catch you. Good night, Emily.
Good night, Papa.
George, I never told you about that letter Miss Crofut got from her minister when she was sick. He wrote her a letter and on the envelope, the address was like this. It said, Jane Crofut, Crofut Farm, Grover's Corners, Sutton County, New Hampshire, the United States of America.
What's so funny about that?
Well, listen, it's not finished. The United States of America, continent of North America, the Western Hemisphere, the Earth, the solar system, the mind of God. That's what it said on the envelope.
What do you know?
Yup, and the postman brought it. Just the same.
What do you know?
That's all the first act, folks. Now we're going to move on to the second act. 3 years later. Yes, the sun's come up over 1,000 times. Summers and winters have cracked the mountains a little bit more, and the rain has brought down some of the dirt. Some of the babies that weren't even born yet have begun talking regular sentences, and folks that thought they were right young and spry have found it difficult to bound up a flight of stairs, unlike they used to, without their heart fluttering a little. All that can happen in 1,000 days. Nature's been pushing and contriving in other ways too. A number of young people fell in love and got married. Yes, the mountain there's gotten a few fractions of an inch away from us, and thousands of gallons of water have passed by the mill. Almost everybody in the world gets married. You know what I mean? I mean, there are hardly any exceptions in our town. Most everybody in the world climbs into their graves married. The first act was called The Daily Life. The second act, this act, is called Love and Marriage. There's another act coming after this, but I can reckon you can guess. Well, as I said, it's 3 years later, 1904, July 7th, just after high school commencement. That's when most of our young people jump up and get married. Yes, as soon as they've passed their examinations on solid geometry and Cicero's orations, they suddenly feel themselves fit to be married. It's early morning, and this time it's been raining, thundering and pouring. Mrs. Gibbs' garden and Mrs. Webb's here drench. All those bean poles and pea vines drench. Just yesterday on Main Street, it looked like curtains being blown along. It may begin any minute now. It's 5:45 for Boston. And here comes Mrs. Gibbs and Mrs. Webb coming down to make breakfast. I don't have to point out to the ladies in my audience that these two ladies you see before them, these two ladies cook 3 meals a day. One for 20 years, the other for 40. And no summer vacation. They both raised 2 children apiece, wash, clean the house, and never a nervous breakdown. It's like what one of those Middle West poets said. You've got to love life to have life, and you've got to have life to love life. It's what they call a vicious circle. Here comes Howie Newsom delivering the milk, and here comes Cy Crowell delivering the morning paper like his brother before him.
Morning, Cy.
Morning, Howie.
Anything in the papers I ought to know?
Nothing much, except we're losing about the greatest baseball pitcher Grover's Corners ever had.
Reckon he is.
Now all he'll be doing is pitching hay.
Whoa! Whoa, Bessie. Guess I can stop and talk if I have a mind to.
He could hit, too, and run bases.
Mighty fine ball player.
I don't get how he could give up something like that just to get married. What do you have, Howie?
Can't tell, Cy. Never had any talent that way.
Morning, Howie.
Morning, Bill.
Morning, Mr. Warren.
Seeing what I can do to prevent the flood. River's been rising all night.
Cy Crowell here's all broke up about George Gibbs retiring from baseball.
Yes, sir, that's the way it goes. Back in '84, we had a player, Si. Even George Gibbs couldn't touch him. Named Hank Todd. Went up to Maine to become a parson. Wonderful ball player. Howie, how's the weather seem to you?
Oh, it should clear up. It's been raining so much, it should be over soon.
Howie?
Bill? Good morning, Miss Gibbs.
Good morning, Howie.
It's a shame about the weather. It's been raining so much, it ought to clear up.
Certainly hope it will.
What'll it be today?
Well, Howie, looks like I'm going to have a house full of relations. So I'll need 2 cream and 3 milk, please.
2 cream and 3 milk. My wife says to tell you we hope you'll be happy. We know they will.
Well, tell your wife I hope she can get to the wedding.
She'll get through she can. Good morning, Miss Webb.
Good morning, Mr. Newsom. I know I told you 4 quarts, but I hope you can spare me another.
Yes, ma'am. And 2 cream.
Do you think the weather will clear up, Howie?
I was just telling Miss Gibbs as how it's been raining so much, it should clear up soon. Miss Newsom told me to tell you special as how we hope they'll be happy. No, they will be.
Thank you. And tell Miss Newsom that we expect to see both of you at the church tonight.
We'll get there if we can. We couldn't miss something like that. Come on, Bessie.
Well, Ma, the day has come. You're losing one of your chicks.
Oh, Frank Gibbs, don't you start that. I feel like crying every minute of it.
Groom's upstairs shaving himself, only there ain't an awful lot of him to shave up there. He's been whistling and singing to himself all morning, as if he's excited to leave us or something. Then as I was walking down here this morning, I heard the funniest thing. He was in front of the mirror practicing his I do's, only it didn't sound too convincing to me.
Oh, Frank, I don't know how we'll get along. All his life I've seen to it that he's got warm things on and his feet are dry. They're too young. Emily won't think of such things. He'll catch death of cold within a week.
I remember my wedding morning, Julia.
Don't you dare start that.
I was the scaredest young fella in the state of New Hampshire. But then I saw you coming down that aisle, and you were the most beautiful girl I had ever seen. Only problem was I had never seen you before. There I was in the Congregational Church, marrying a total stranger.
And how do you think I felt? Frank, weddings are perfectly awful things. Farces, that's what they are. Here, I've made you something.
Why, Julia Hersey, French toast.
It ain't hard to make, and I had to do something.
How'd you sleep last night, Julia?
Well, I heard a lot of the hours struck off.
I guess, I don't know. I get a shock every time I think about George setting out to become a family man. That great gangland thing, he's just not ready. And the relationship between a father and the son, it's the damnedest, awkwardest, most...
Well, mother and daughter's no picnic, let me tell you.
They'll have their troubles, I suppose, but there's nothing we can do but just sit back and hope that we did the best. You know one of the things that I was most scared of when I married you?
Oh, get along with you.
I was afraid we wouldn't have more than enough conversation than to last us a few weeks. I was afraid we'd be sitting here eating our meals in sheer silence. But you know, it's been about 20 years and we haven't had a dull moment since.
Well, good weather, bad weather, tain't very choice. We always find something to talk about. Do you think they'll have very many troubles?
No, not so many. None that I can see. We've done a pretty good job raising them.
Well, people like to live in this world 2 by 2. Tain't natural to be lonesome. Did you hear Rebecca stirring around upstairs?
Not today. First morning in a long time she hasn't been down here and everybody's busy. Guess she's up there crying or something.
Oh, good Lord, this has to stop. Rebecca! Rebecca! Come down and eat your breakfast!
Good morning, everybody. Only 4 more hours to live.
George Gibbs, where do you think you're going?
I'm just stepping across the grass to see
Oh,
my...
no, you don't! Come back in here and put your rain boots on. It's raining torrents
No,
out
it's
there.
just a
George,
step.
do as your mother tells you.
You'll catch your death of cold and cough all through the service. Now from tomorrow on, you kill yourself into all weathers. While you live in my house, you live wisely and safely, thank you. Besides, perhaps Mrs. Weber's at Easter College at 7 in the morning. Take some coffee.
Be back in a minute. Good morning, Mother Webb.
Good morning, George. Goodness, you brought me. Now, George, I hate to say it, you can sit here out of the rain for a minute, but you know I can ask you in, right?
Why not?
Well, you know as well as I do, George. Groom can't see his bride on his wedding day.
Oh, that's just superstition. Good morning, Mr. Webb.
Good morning, George.
Mr. Webb, you don't believe in that superstition, do you?
There's a lot of common sense in superstitions, George.
Millions have thought it, George, and don't be the first to fly in the face of custom.
How's Emily?
She hasn't waked up yet.
Emily's asleep?
Well, of course she is. We were up to all hours last night, packing and sewing. Now, here's what I'll do. You sit down and drink your coffee for a minute with Mr. Webb, and I'll go upstairs and see if she don't come down to surprise you. But don't be long about it.
Well, George, how are you?
I'm fine. What common sense could there be in a superstition like that, Mr. Webb?
Well, you know, on the wedding morning, a girl's head's full of, oh, you know, clothes and one thing and another. Don't you think that's probably it?
Yes, I never thought of that, I guess.
A girl's apt to be a mite nervous on her wedding day.
Yeah, I wish a person could get married with all that marching up and down.
Every man that has ever lived has felt that way, George, but it hasn't been any use. It's them women folk who've built up weddings, my boy. For a while now, the women have it all their own. The man looks pretty small at a wedding, George. All those good women standing shoulder to shoulder, making sure the knot's tied in a mighty public way.
Well, you believe in it, don't you, Mr. Webb?
Well, yes. Oh, yes. Now, don't misunderstand me, George. Marriage is a wonderful thing. A wonderful thing. Now, don't you forget that.
No, sir. How old were you when you got married?
Well, you see, I'd taken time to get settled, but Mrs. Webb, she wasn't much older than what Emily is. Oh, age hasn't got much to do with it, George, compared with other things.
What were you going to say, Mr. Webb?
I don't know. Was I going to say something? George, I was remembering the other day the advice my father gave me before I got married. What was it he said? Oh, yes. Charles, start right off showing who's boss. Best thing to do is to give an order about something, even if it don't make sense, just so she'll learn to obey. Then he said, if anything about her irritates you, her conversation, or anything, just get right up and leave the house. And then he said, never let your wife know how much money you make, son. Ever.
I don't think I could exactly
So I took the opposite of his advice, and I've been happy ever since. So let that be a lesson to you to never ask anybody on personal matters. So George, are you going to be raising chickens on your farm?
What?
Are you raising chickens on your farm?
Well, Uncle Luke doesn't really go for chickens much, but I've been figuring on reading up.
George, a book came into my office the other day on the philo system of raising chickens. I'd wish you'd read it. I'm thinking of beginning a small way myself in the backyard. I'm going to put an incubator in the cellar.
Charles Webb, are you talking about that incubator again? I thought you two be talking about something worthwhile.
Well, Myrtle, if you want to give the boys some good advice, I'll go upstairs.
Please. George, Emily's got to come down and eat her breakfast. She sends you her love because she doesn't want to lay her eyes on you. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Well, I guess you forgot about that older superstition.
What do you mean, Charles?
Since the caveman, no bridegroom should ever see his father-in-law on the day of the wedding, or anywhere near him. Now remember that.
Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Webb. I'm going to have to interrupt again here. You see, I want to explore this wedding, this plan to spend a lifetime together. I'm awfully interested on how such things begin. You know how it is. You're 21 or 22. You make some decisions and then you're 70. You've been a lawyer for 50 years and that little white-haired lady beside you has eaten over 50,000 meals with you. How do such things begin? George and Emily are going to show you now the conversation they had when they first knew that, well, as the saying goes, they were meant for each other. But before they do that, I want you to try and remember something for me. I want you to try and remember when you were that young. And particularly the days when you were first in love. When you were like a person sleepwalking. You didn't quite see the road ahead of you and you didn't quite hear anything that was said to you. You were just a little bit crazy. So you remember that. Now, they'll be coming out of the high school at 3 o'clock. George has just been elected president of the junior class, and as it's July, he'll be president all through senior year. Poor old Emily's just been elected secretary and treasurer. We all know how important that is. Here they come down Main Street now.
Oh, I can't, Lois. I've got to go home. I'm sorry. Goodbye. Oh, Ernestine, can you come over later and do Latin? Well, tell your mom you have to. Okay, goodbye. Goodbye, Fred. Goodbye, Helen.
Goodbye. Emily, could I carry your books home for you?
Why, yes, but it's not far.
Emily, why are you mad at me?
I'm not mad at you.
You've been treating me so funny lately.
Well, since you asked. Oh, goodbye, Miss Corcoran.
Goodbye. What was it?
Well, George, I don't like the change that's come over you in the past year. And I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I've just got to Tell the truth and shame the devil.
A change? What exactly do you mean?
Well, I used to like you a lot, and I used to watch you as you did everything, because we've been friends for so long. But then you got started with that baseball, and, well, you never stopped to talk to anybody anymore. Not even your own family you didn't. And George, it's a fact. Ever since you got elected captain, you've been awful stuck up and conceited. And all the girls say so. And it hurts me to hear him say it, but I've got to agree a little bit because it's true, George.
Gosh. Emily, I never thought that such a thing would happen to me. I guess it's hard for a fella not to have some faults creep into his character.
Well, I expect a man to be perfect, and I think he should be.
Well, I don't think it's possible to be perfect, Emily.
Well, my father's perfect. And as far as I can tell, your father's perfect. So there's no reason on earth why you shouldn't be too.
Well, I feel it's the other way around, that men aren't naturally good and women are.
Well, you might as well know right now that I am not perfect. It's harder for a girl to be perfect like a man is. Girls are more nervous.
Emily.
No, I'm sorry I said all that stuff about you. I didn't mean it.
Emily.
And now I can see it's not even important.
Emily.
And it's not true at all.
Emily, would you like to go get a strawberry ice cream soda or something?
Why, yes, George, I would.
Afternoon, Stu.
Hello, George. Hello, Emily. What do you have? Why, Emily Webb, what have you been crying about?
She had an awful scare, Mr. Morgan. The hardware store wagon almost ran her over. Everybody says Tom Huckins drives like a madman.
Yeah, that guy's nuts. Here, you just take a drink of water, Emily. You look all shook up. Now, you better look both ways before crossing Main Street now. Gets worse every year. Now, what do you have?
I'll have a strawberry phosphate.
No, Emily, have a strawberry ice cream soda with me.
Well,
2 strawberry ice cream sodas coming right up.
Yes, sir.
There are 125 horses in Grover's Corners this minute I'm talking to you. State inspector came in here yesterday, and now they're bringing in these automobiles. Man, I tell you, the best thing to do is just stay home. Why, I can remember the day when a dog could sleep in the middle of Main Street and nothing could come along to disturb him. There you are. Enjoy.
Thank you.
they're so expensive.
No, Emily, you don't worry about that. We're celebrating the election, and do you know what else we're celebrating?
No.
Well, I'm celebrating because I have a friend that tells me things that ought to be told to me.
Oh, George, please don't think of that. I don't know why I said all those things
No,
about you.
No, Emily, you stick to it. I'm glad that you spoke to me like that. But you'll see, I am going to change. I'm going to change so fast. And, Emily, can I ask you a favor?
Yes.
If I do go away to State Agriculture College next year, will you write me a letter every once in a while?
I certainly will. I certainly will, George. And it certainly seems like being away for so long, you wouldn't be as interested in Grover's Corners after a while. I mean, Grover's Corners isn't as interesting as, well, all New Hampshire. It is a nice town, though.
Emily, the day wouldn't come when I wouldn't want to know everything about our town. I know that much is true.
Well, I'll try to make it very interesting, George.
Yeah. You know, Emily, every time I meet a farmer, I ask him if he thinks it's important to go to State Agriculture College.
Why, George.
Yeah, and some of them say it's even a waste of time, that you can get all the same information in the pamphlets that the government sends you.
My.
And like you say, being gone all that time, meeting new people in other towns, gosh, if anything like that could happen, well, I don't want to go away. I mean, I figured new people in the other towns are just as good as old ones, and you're as good of a friend as I've got.
But, George, maybe it is important for you to go away and learn about
cattle judging and soils and those things. But I don't know.
No. Emily, I'm going to make up my mind right now. I won't go to State Agriculture College. I'll tell Pa about it tonight.
Why, George, I don't know why you decided tonight. It's a whole nother year away.
Emily, I'm glad that you spoke to me about this fault in my character. What you said was right, but there was one thing wrong in it, and that's where you said that I wasn't noticing. People, and you, for instance, well, I mean, I thought of you as one of the chief people that I thought about, but I always made sure that you were on the bleachers, and you were who I was with, and, well, I think that once you found a person that's fond of you, and if you're fond of that person, well, that's a very important thing.
I think that's important too.
Emily, I guess what I'm trying to say is, if I do improve and I make this big change, could you be, could you be...
I am now and I always have been, George.
Well, I guess this is an important conversation that we're having.
Yes, yes it is.
I'll walk you out in a second. Mr. Morgan, I'll have to come back to pay you for the strawberry patch.
George Gibbs, you mean to tell me you ain't got my money?
You can keep my watch until I come back.
Keep your watch. I'll trust you 10 years, George, not a day over.
I'll be back in 5 minutes. I'm ready.
Well, now we're ready to get on with this wedding. There are a lot of things that happen during the wedding. There are a lot of thoughts that go on during the wedding. We can't get them all into one wedding, naturally. Especially not a Grover's Corners wedding where they're awfully plain and short. In this wedding, I play the minister. It gives me the right to say a few more things about it. See, for a while now, the play gets pretty serious. Most churches say that marriage is a sacrament. I don't actually quite know what that means. But I can guess. It's like what Mrs. Gibbs said earlier. People were made to live 2 by 2. This is a good wedding. But even at a good wedding, there's a lot of confusion that goes down deep in people's minds. And we thought we'd add that to our play too. The real hero of this play isn't on stage at all. And we all know who that is. It's like what one of those European fellows said. Every new child born is nature's attempt at the perfect human being. Well, nature's been pushing and contriving for some time now, and we all know she's interested in quantity, but I believe she's interested in quality too. That's why I joined the ministry. And let's not forget the ancestors. Millions of them set out to live 2 by 2 as well. Millions of them. Well, that's all my sermon. It wasn't very long anyway.
Should be crying. I suppose there's nothing to cry about. It came over me this morning at breakfast. There Emily was, eating her breakfast as she's done for 17 years. And she's leaving my house. I suppose that's it. And Emily, all of a sudden, she put her spoon on the table and she said, "I can't eat another bite." And she put her head down and she cried. Well, I've got to say, you know I have to. There's something downright cruel about sending girls into marriages like this. It's cruel, I know, but I couldn't get myself to say anything. I went into it blind as a bat myself. This whole world's wrong. That's what's the matter.
Come on, get out of here.
I love you!
There used to be an awful lot of that kind of mess back in the old days. We're more civilized now. So they say.
George? Why, George, what's wrong? What's the matter?
Oh, Ma, I don't want to grow old. Why is everybody pushing me so?
Why, George, you wanted this!
For the last time, I tell you, Ma.
No.
All I want to be is a
No,
fella.
George! Stop this! Why, I'm ashamed of you. If anyone should hear you talking.
What? Where's Emily?
George, you gave me such a turn.
Cheer up, Ma. I'm getting married. Mom, what's wrong? Don't cry. We gotta do this. Come on.
Let me catch my breath a minute. Oh, I've never felt so alone in my whole life. And George over there, I hate him. I wish I were dead. Papa!
Now, Emily, now don't get upset.
I don't want to get married.
Now, everything's gonna be all right.
No. Remember what you used to say? You used to say I was your girl.
No.
I can work for you. I can clean house and do all that stuff.
Now, you mustn't think of such things. Now. George, will you come here a minute?
But Papa, no.
Why, you're marrying the best young fellow in the world. George is a fine fellow. George, I'm giving away my daughter. Do you think you can take care of her?
I'm going to try my best, Mr. Webb. Emily, I love you. I need you. I'm going to try.
Well, then if you love me, help me. All I want is someone to love me, George.
I will.
And I mean forever, you hear? Forever and ever.
Come, they're waiting.
Do you, George,
Oh, it's a perfectly lovely wedding.
take this
Loveliest
woman,
wedding
Emily,
I ever saw.
to be your
Oh, I
lovely
do
wedded
love
wife?
this wedding, don't you? Oh, I think it's
You'll
lovely.
have and hold from this
Oh,
day
I've never
forward,
been to such a lovely wedding. Have you?
in sickness and
Oh.
in health,
Isn't it lovely?
for richer or poorer,
Oh, but
beloved and cherished,
I've
till
never been to
death
such a lovely wedding.
do you part.
I always cry.
I do.
I just like to
Do
see
you,
young
Emily,
people happy, I guess,
take this
don't
man,
you?
George,
Oh, I think it's
to be
lovely.
your wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day
They
forward,
are a lovely couple.
in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer,
I'm so happy.
beloved and cherished, till death do you part.
Aren't you happy to be here?
I do.
I'm happy to be here.
I now pronounce you man and wife. You may kiss the bride. I've married over 200 couples in my day. Do I believe in it? I don't know. Person one marries person two. You know how it is. The cottage, the go-kart, the Sunday afternoon drives in the Ford, the first rheumatism, the second rheumatism, the grandchildren, the deathbed, the reading of the will. It's interesting once every 1,000 times. Well, let's have Mendelssohn's Wedding March.
Oh, wasn't this a lovely wedding? Oh, I'm truly happy. Oh, I always say happiness. That's the great thing. The important thing is to be happy.
That's all the second act, folks. 10 minutes intermission. This time, 9 years have passed by, friends. It's summer, 1930. Gradual changes in Grover's Corners. Horses are getting rarer. Farmers are coming to town in Fords. Everybody seems to be locking their doors at night now. There's no robbers, but everybody's heard of them. You'd be surprised on the whole. Things don't change much around here. It certainly is a very important part of Grover's Corners. It's on a hilltop, a very windy hilltop. You come up here on a fine afternoon, and you can see range upon range of hills. And if you've got a glass, you can see the White Mountains and Mount Washington off in the distance. Very beautiful. Over there are the old tombstones, 1670 to 1680. For other people that came up here to make a name for themselves. Some people walk through and laugh at what's on the graves. Well, I guess that don't do any harm. And the townspeople, they get these genealogists up here to make sure they're daughters of the American Revolution or of the Mayflower. Well, I guess that don't do any harm either. Over there are the Civil War tombstones, iron flags on their graves. The New Hampshire boys had a notion that the Union ought to be kept together, even though they'd never seen more than 50 miles of it themselves. All they knew was the name, friends. The United States of America. And they went, and they died about it. Well, this here is a new part of the cemetery. Here we have our friend Mrs. Gibbs. And there's Simon Stimson, organist at the Congregational Church. And here we have Mrs. Soames, who thoroughly enjoyed the wedding, you remember. And many others. And there's Wallace Webb, Editor Webb's boy. His appendix burst while on a camping trip to Crawford Notch. Yes, people wild with grief bring the relatives up here. And you know how it is. It's time. And sunny days and rainy days and snow. We're awfully glad they're in a beautiful place. And we're on our way up here when our fit's over. Now, there are some things we don't really take out and look at very often. We all know in our bones that something is eternal, and that something isn't names, and it ain't houses or earth, and it ain't even the stars. That something has to do with human beings. There's something deep down that's eternal about every human being. Now, you know as well as I do that the dead don't stay interested in us living people very long. They slowly lose hold of Earth and the ambitions they had and the people they loved. They get weaned away. That's the way I put it, weaned away. Now, some of the things they're going to say may hurt your feelings, but that's just the way it is. Mother and daughter, husband and wife, enemy and enemy, money and miser. All those terribly important things grow pale around here. Well, there's some living people. There's Joe Stoddard, our undertaker, and here comes Sam Craig, the Grover's Corners girl who left that one.
Hello, Joe Stoddard.
Good afternoon, good afternoon. Let me see now. Do I know you?
I'm Sam Craig.
Gracious sakes alive, of all people. I should have known you'd be back for the funeral. You've been away a long time, Sam.
Yes, I was married out in Buffalo 12 years ago now, Joe, but I was in the East when I heard of my cousin's death, so I thought I'd combine things a little and come see the old home. You look well.
Yes, yes, can't complain. Very sad our journey here today, Sam.
Yes.
Yes, I always say I hate to supervise when a young person's taken. I had to come here early today. My son's supervising at the home.
This is old Farmer McCarthy. I used to do chores for him after school. He had lumbago.
Yes, we brought Farmer McCarthy here a number of years ago now.
And this is my Aunt Julia. I'd forgotten that she... Of course.
Yes, Doc Gibbs lost his wife, too. 3 years ago now, about this time. Today's another bad blow for him, too.
That's my sister Carrie's girl. Sam Craig.
I'm always uncomfortable when they're around.
Simon? Did they choose their own verses much, Joe?
No, not usual. Mostly the breed picked the verse.
Doesn't sound much like my Aunt Julia. But then, I suppose there aren't many of those Hersey sisters left nowadays. Let me see. I wanted to look at my father's and mother's graves.
Over with the Craigs, Avenue F.
This is the organist at the church, isn't it? Drank a lot, we used to say.
Yeah, nobody was supposed to know about it. He'd seen a peck of trouble. Took his own life, you know.
Did he?
Yep. Hung himself in the attic. They tried to cover it up, but of course it got around. Wrote his own epitaph. You can see it there.
But it's just some notes of music. What does it mean?
Oh, I wouldn't know. It was wrote up in the Boston papers at the time.
What did she die of, Joe?
Who?
My cousin.
Oh, didn't you hear? She had some trouble bringing a baby into the world. Was her second. There was a boy about 4 years old.
And she's to be buried here?
Yes. There ain't much more room among the Gibbses, so they're opening up a whole new section over by Avenue B. You'll have to excuse me now. I see they're coming.
Who is it, Julia?
My daughter-in-law, Emily Webb.
Lot of Claire. The trail up here must be awful muddy. What'd she die from, Julia?
In childbirth.
Childbirth. I'd forgotten about that. Wasn't life terrible? And wonderful.
Wonderful, was it?
Now, Simon, remember.
Oh, I remember Emily's wedding. Wasn't it a lovely wedding? Oh, and I remember Emily reading the class poem at graduation exercises. Emily was one of the brightest girls to ever graduate from high school. Principal Wilkins says so all the time. Oh, I called him then at their new farm, just before I died. Oh, but it was a beautiful farm.
It's on the same road I lived on.
Hello. Oh, hello, Emily.
Hello, Mother Gibbs.
Emily.
Hey, sis.
Wally. Hello. Oh, it's raining.
They'll be gone soon enough, dear.
Seems thousands of years since I've... Oh, Papa, remember that was my favorite hymn. Hello, Mr. Simpson.
How do you do?
Mother Gibbs, George and I have made the farm into just the best place you've ever seen. We thought of you the whole time while we did it. We bought a long cement drinking fountain for the stock. It's fine. We built it out of the money you left us.
I did?
Why, yes, the legacy you left us was over $350.
Yes, Emily.
Well, anyway, there's this device on the fountain, and it makes it to where the water can't overflow, and it can't sink below a certain point. They're leaving.
Shh, dear. Just rest yourself.
My boy's in Mr. Carter's house today. Oh, Mrs. Carter, my boy's at your house.
Is he now?
Yes, he loves it there. Oh, and we have a fort, too. It's so nice. Oh, Father Gibbs is giving you some of my flowers. He looks just like George, doesn't he? How I loved him so. I never realized how living person's lives are just, they're so dark and troubled. Morning and night, they're just troubled.
A little cooler than it was.
The rain has cooled it off a little.
Those northeast winds always do the same thing, don't they? If it ain't a rain, it's a 3-day blow.
Why, Mother Gibbs, I can go back. I know I can. I can feel it. Why, just a second there, I was thinking about the farm, and I was holding my baby in my arms, plain as day.
Yes, of course you can.
I can go back and live all those days over again. Why not?
Yes, some do, but they soon come back here.
All I can say is, Emily, don't.
Emily, don't. It's not what you think it'd be.
But I pick a happy day. I'd pick the first day I knew I loved George. Why should that be painful?
You see, you not only live it, but you watch yourself living it, and you see what they down there never know. You see the future, and you know what's going to happen next.
That's not the only reason why you shouldn't do it anymore. When you've been here longer, you'll understand. Our life here is to just forget all of that, and to think only what is ahead, and to be ready for whatever is ahead. When you've been here longer, you'll understand.
But this is my life. This is all I've known. This is all I have.
Emily, it isn't wise, really. It isn't.
Well, I think it's something I have to decide for myself. And I'll pick a happy day anyways.
No. At least choose an unimportant day. Choose the least important day of your life. It will be important enough.
Well, I can pick a birthday at least, right? Yes, I pick my 12th birthday.
Okay. February 11th, 1899. Is there any particular day or part of day?
Oh, I want the whole day.
Want the whole day? All right, we'll begin at dawn. You remember it had been snowing for several days, and they'd begun clearing the roads. The sun is coming up.
Oh, there's Main Street. And there's Mr. Morgan's store before he changed it. And there's the livery stables.
Yes, it's 1899. It's 14 years ago.
This is the town I knew as a little girl. The town I knew when I was growing up. And there's the white picket fence that surrounded my house. Oh, how I loved it so. Are they inside?
Yes. Your mother will be coming down soon to make breakfast. And you remember your father had come back on the morning train. He'd gone out to visit his college in New York at Clinton.
No. Oh, there's Howie Newsom. And the policeman, but I thought he was dead. He's dead.
Morning, Howie.
Morning, Bill. You're up early.
Been rescuing a party. Darn near frozen to death down by Polish Town there. Got drunk and lay down in the snowdrifts. Thought he was in bed and had to shake him.
And there's Joe Crowell.
Morning, Mr. Warren. Morning, Howie.
Morning, Joe.
Morning, Joe.
Children, Wally, Emily, time to get up.
Mama, I'm here. Mama. Oh, she looks so young. I never knew Mama was so young.
You can come and dress by the fire if you like. Be quick about it.
Good morning, Mr. Newsom.
Good morning, Miss Webb.
Whew. It's cold.
10 below by my barn.
Think of it. Keep yourself wrapped up.
I will.
Mama, where's my blue hair ribbon?
Dear, I just put it on your dresser, but it's special for your birthday.
If it were a snake, it'd bite you.
Good morning,
Yes,
Bill.
Good morning, Mr. Webb. You're up early.
Yes, just been back at my old college in New York State. Been any trouble here?
I was called up to rescue a Polish fella. Darn near froze to death he was.
We must get it in the paper.
Quite much.
Good morning, Mother.
Good morning, Charles. How did it go?
Fine, I guess. I told him a few things. Everything all right?
It's fine. Can't think of anything special. Howie Newsom says it's 10 below down in his barn.
It's colder than that up at Hamilton College. Students' ears are darn near frozen off. It ain't Christian. The paper have any mistakes in it?
Not that I noticed. Sit down and drink your coffee. Oh, Charles, today's Emily's birthday. You remembered to get her something, didn't you?
Yes, I have something. Where's my girl? Where's my
Don't
birthday
interrupt
girl?
her now. She's slow enough as it is. You'll see her at breakfast. Now, children, I don't have to call you again.
It's so hard to take. I can't even look at them hard enough. Why'd they have to get old? Why did it all have to go away? Can I go in?
Good morning, Mama. Good morning, dear. Very happy birthday and many happy returns, my little girl. There are surprises waiting for you on the kitchen table.
Oh, Mama, you shouldn't have.
For birthday or no birthday, chew your breakfast good and slow. I want you to grow up to be a good, strong girl. Then the blue paper's from your Aunt Carrie. And I know who you can guess who the postcard album is from. George Gibbs. Must come over right early in the morning and sit down on our doorstep. Real nice thing.
Oh, I'd forgotten about this. George.
Chew your bacon good and slow. It'll keep you warm on a cold day.
I can't go on. Mama, look at me 1 minute though you really saw me. Mama, 14 years have gone by. I'm dead. You're a grandmother now. Mama, I married George Gibbs. Wally's dead too, don't you remember? We felt just terrible about it. Just for a second, we're all together. Mama, just for a second, let's be happy. Let's look at one another.
Found the yellow paper. I found it on your grandmother's things. You're old enough now to wear it, and I thought you liked it.
It's beautiful. It's just what I wanted.
Well, I hoped you'd like it. Hunted all over. Couldn't find one in Concord. Nora couldn't find one in Concord. So I had to send all the way to Boston. And Wally has something for you, too. Can't think of what it might be. And your father has something for you, too. Should be. He's coming.
Where's my girl? Where's my birthday girl?
I can't do this. I can't even look at him hard enough. And time goes by so fast. And they don't even realize. I didn't even realize. All this time. I didn't even realize it. Just take me back, up the hill to my grave. Just let me say goodbye. Goodbye, world. Goodbye, Grover's Quarters. Goodbye, freshly ironed dresses. And Mama and Papa. And my butternut tree. Going to bed and waking up. Oh, world. You're too wonderful for anyone to even realize you. Do people ever realize life while they live it? Every minute?
No. The saints and poets, maybe. They do something.
I'm ready now. Well, were you happy? I should have listened to you. All living people are is blind. They're just blind. They don't see world's beauty. Stimson. I should have listened to them.
Yes. Now you know. Now you know that's what it was to be alive. To move about in the cloud of ignorance. To go up and down trampling on the feelings of those about you. To spend and waste time as if you had 1,000,000 years. That's the happy existence you wanted to go back to. Ignorance and blindness.
Now, Simon, that ain't the whole truth, and you know it. Emily, look. It's clearing up. The stars are coming out. Look at that one star. Oh, I always forget its name.
My boy Joel was a sailor. He knew them all. Some nights he'd sit out on the front porch and say them all by name. Yes, ma'am, they are beautiful.
Star makes mighty fine company.
There's one of them coming.
That's funny. Ain't no time for him to be here.
Mother Gibbs, it's George.
Oh, George.
Goodness, that ain't no way to behave.
He ought to be at home.
Live people don't realize, do they?
No, dear. They don't realize.
Most of the lights are out in Grover's Corners. Well, Tori Hawkins has just watched the Albany train go by. A few folks are sitting up late and talking at the library table. Stars are doing their old crisscross patterns up in the sky. Scientists haven't really figured that one out yet. They seem to think that there's no living beings up there. It's just dust or fire. But there's a strain. And that strain is so hard that every 16 hours, we must rest. 11 o'clock. Grover's Corners. You get a good rest too. Good night.
From the strain of a fast day.